What's up, everybody? GR Zerza here, back again with another deck tech. This is going to be Faria 3.5 color control. Yesterday I had the opportunity to drive 2.5 hours to play in a local, and I got to play a ton of games, and with the help of Jeremy Franklin, DMO, Ruler School, represent, we tweaked the list that I had brought with me, and this is what we ended up with. And it's really fun to play. And I was playing against the tier 1 decks, and I was either winning or in the game to the very end. So with the tweaks, I was actually able to beat the Atom list. So that was very encouraging. So let's just go ahead and jump into this. For those of you who don't know, Faria, her main two things you're going to be doing whenever you play a Regalia or a light Regalia, if it's an Excalibur, which we play for, you get to do two things. Mainly what you're going to be doing is drawing a card and drawing a stranger from your stranger deck at random. If there's something you have to kill and it happens to be tapped, then you can do that too. Also, there's a little bit of synergy in the late game with one of the strangers, and we'll talk about that later. We're going to play 4 Excalibur, and this gives your J-Ruler +4/+4, for those of you who don't know, and you can use it to play God's Arts, Strangers, or Sword Arts, which we are playing a few. Not as many as the Knights Quick Cast deck was playing, but there still is. You're mostly using these for Strangers and Sacred Waveblade. 2 Caduceus. This gives your J-Ruler Drain, which is pretty relevant. Normally, by the time you flip, you're in catch-up mode. You've cleared their board, and now you're going to start attacking and draining life. So this gets you back into the game pretty quickly. But we are also playing some Mage Arts that you can use. That will definitely... this will help pay for that, and you can pay for Strangers with these. So... for instance, you can get double blue, double white, and you can play an Ishtar from your stranger deck, which is pretty solid. So here's the major changes that I made. I realized that drawing buckets of cards and filling up your graveyard is really important, especially when you're playing Perfect Loki. So I wanted to add 4 Dark Alice. Yes, this is going to raise the price of the deck considerably. But it's just... I hate to say it, but it's necessary. I played this build without Dark Alice and without Guinevere before, and you ran out of cards way too often. So yeah, we're gonna be playing 4 Gwen and 4 Dark Alice for all the card draw. 4 Red Percival. This is to help you get to your Guinevere's and get your card draw engine going. It's also a good target to sack with Guinevere or Dark Alice, Dark Alice if you need to. It also can sack itself to deal 2 to something, or if you haven't gotten into your Regalia, it hits either of those. So we were playing White Percival at first because the deck was a little more heavy on blue-white, but after the tweaks, it's a little more heavy red-white, and this Percival is just better because it has more targets, and we like the sack effect better. So that was one of the changes. 3 Sacred Waveblade. I've talked about this card before, so I won't go into too much detail. I think there was only one time I did not awaken this. This deck is a bit slower. You play a little bit more passively. You're a control deck. You don't need to clear the way and keep attacking. Sometimes you're okay with them having a 6/6 or an 8/8 on board that doesn't do anything, so you don't have to use this right away. Other things you can do with this is remove Seal of Lyneth or the Misty Woods edition that is really powerful in the Atom deck because they use that to get Kaguya and Zeus Alice out of their graveyard, and that's pretty powerful. So you can do this to if they're tapped out or the turn after they play it and they don't have any good targets yet. But yeah, usually you want to be using this to awaken because the strangers are kind of what put this deck over to the next level. So Light of Raise and Revive, just another great removal spell. In a pinch, you can go get your Excalibur, if you haven't gotten it. But yeah, most of the time, you're using this to remove a Zeus Alice from the game. or some kind of threat. If they try to attack you with a Narlathotep and sack all their moons and make it a 5,000, whatever it is, you can just remove it from the game response. That's usually a good response to that. So yeah, overall, you have some really solid removal, and both of these can be played with your Regalia. Just make sure the blue-white ones play with Excalibur and the red-white ones play with your Caduceus. So 2 Bewildering Charm. This card, in a pinch, it's really good. Like I said, if they go all in on a Narlathotep, bouncing it back to the hand is really solid. It can buy you another turn against a Zeus Alice, but most of the time, I ended up using this card to bounce my own Perfect Loki back to my hand and replay it. Or a couple times I'd save like a Stranger, or like Twin Blades is a good Stranger. The Strangers a lot of them have good enter effects. So yeah, this card, I don't think we need more than 2, just because we're fitting so much control into this deck. But it is a really nice card. And one time I had 2 of them in my hand, and we were kind of in a stalemate, and I just used this to draw a card, because a lot of times people can forget that this has a second effect, and you can draw a card with it. Nitrogen Blade. Right now, this card is just, it's sneaky. It's the way one of my friends that I played with said. He's just like, that card is so sneaky. Like, you don't always know that it can stop certain things. He actually didn't even realize this, but I had hit him with a Motoko, and he Nitrogen Blade because he didn't want me to drain. And I was like, you can just awaken this and you'll kill my Motoko. And he's like, oh. So yeah, this card is actually really, really decent right now. So lots of things you're going to want to stop. Kaguya enters, but Perfect Loki enters are huge. They're game-winning triggers. So having answers to that was really important. We wanted to have Erudite in the main. Seal of Lyneth, another great card. One thing that you can do is you can play Seal of Lyneth, and then you can respond to it without passing priority and play a Dark Alice. And then after you've chosen your trigger target with Seal, and then you play Dark Alice, and then one of your effects of discard or banish an entity is you're just going to banish the Seal. So what happens is the Seal gets removed from the game first, so its leave play ability happens. The problem is there's nothing that it's removed yet, so nothing happens. Then it removes the entity from the game, and it's permanently removed. So that's kind of nice. Another thing you can do is bounce this back to your hand in response to the trigger on the stack with your Undines from your Stranger deck, and I'll show you that when we get down there. So yeah, this card's been pretty dang solid, and it's an addition to get in the graveyard that can turn on your Dark Alice, and that does happen occasionally. So Izanami, here's a card that I thought might be too cute, but in this build, being so heavy in red-white, and we're not really playing black, but we kind of are, this 90% of the time you're going to use to get back a Perfect Loki at instant speed. Sorry, it's in Spanish or something. It looks like Spanish. But you pay white, red, and discard this, and you get a 3-drop from your graveyard into play. So typically you're going to use that to get a perfect Loki into play. And that's a really good combo. One time against a board of Zeus Alices, I got back a Barbados to tap down their team, and to be able to win the race. So there are other things that you can do with this. Hitting like a lot of the Strangers can be really solid, but like I said, 99% of the time, 90% of the time, you're going to be hitting Perfect Loki. So 2 Motoko, this is our win con. I have quick casted this in the end step. I mean, you do typically go pretty late, so it's not out of the question to just cast this in the upkeep or at their end step or whenever you feel safe. It can't be canceled, and it's really hard to deal with. But most of the time, you're going to be discarding the first one to your Guinevere and your Dark Alice triggers, and then you're going to be using the Stranger deck to bring this into play in the late game. 2 Perfect Loki. We can cast this from hand because the Stone deck has 1 Scorched Bales. So, and like I said, we do get to 5, 6, 7, 8 stones a lot of games. So chances are you're going to have a blue-black. Otherwise, you can get the black from Dark Alice, or most of the time I am discarding the first perfect Loki I see to the Dark Alice and the Guinevere, and then bringing it back with Izanami, as we discussed before. And then we're playing one Holy Nova, kind of a safety net. There are more in the sideboard for the games that you really need it, but sometimes just having a board wipe is really solid. There was one game that I happened to awaken this. I had I had enough will to do that, and I ended up getting lucky on my J activate, or on the awaken, and I got an Ishtar, which got back a Motoko. So I know that's Magic Christmas Land, but most of the time when you use this, yeah, you're just casting it. You're not awakening it, and you have to be careful because there are some strangers you really don't want to hit with the awaken. But so the stones as they are right now, 4 the blue white, 4 the red white, 1 more blue white, and then 1 red black. So you have 5 stones that produce red. All but 1 produce white, and 5 stones that produce blue. So it's kind of cut right down the middle, and you might tweak that as you tweak the deck. But right now, I want to be able to play a Caduceus no matter what on turn 2 if I need to. Excalibur no later than turn 3. And yeah, usually you're going to have will to be able to play Light of Raise and Revive. And really, like Guinevere, Percival, and Dark Alice, like on turn 1, you really want to be able to play those. And you can, if you have, like, if your opening hand is a Dark Alice and either a Percival or a Gwyn, like, you're guaranteed to have a turn 1 play, which is really nice. So I do have some games where I don't get one of the stones. Like, I drew Scorched Bales and then like 3 Heat Rays in a row, and I gotta say, like, it doesn't suck as much as it could in you know, in the last format. There are times where you're just like, well, I'll just play all these red and white spells then. So yeah, there's a nice mix in the deck, and you can definitely buy yourself some time. But most of the time, you do end up getting red, white, and blue, like by turn 2 or 3. That's pretty average. So, okay, so the meat of the deck here, double Ishtar. Your number 1 target's going to be Motoko. I have used it to get perfect Loki. Another great target for it. But yeah, just a real solid end game closer. Red Wizard has been performing very well. It kills Dark Alice. That's one of the biggest things that it does. And in our sideboard, we are playing Burial Rites, so we want to be able to have another way to kill a Dark Alice without having to like waste a Wave Blade on her or something like that, because we want to save those for Zeus Alice usually. Undine, just a solid card. Against Isis, I was bouncing Moons. In the grindy matchups, you're going to be bouncing your own like Excaliburs and get more enter triggers. This card, I blocked a Motoko with it just to buy myself time. I played against like a machine, or not a machine, a Schrodinger cat roulette deck where they were putting Motokos into play like really early, and this bought me the turn that I needed to be able to kill it, and then just from there, it's really hard to lose once you deal with their Motoko. So, yeah, solid card. Twin Swords, another really solid card against the aggro. Several plays where I was able to put the 3-drop they just played back on their library and then block their, you know, their 5/5 or their 6/6 and like make a favorable trade. So, yeah, just a great card. 1 Barbados. I wanted to have a way to tap down their stuff so that when I play Regalia, I can kill stuff that I really need to. And also, he helps out with Siegfried with the enter. Yeah, these are kind of like the utility cards. I wasn't too sure on these, but they did perform very well. So you guys can definitely play around with these. It's, like, I'm not claiming this is the end, you know, be all list. It's still being tweaked, but like this really helped against ISIS and Barbados. Like it's nice to tap down the team, play a Regalia, kill something, and then swing into something with him. Also, I was, like I said before, I had one in the grave. I was able to cast Izanami's ability and like sneak him in on their turn and tap down their entire team. And then, yeah, you just kind of steal the tempo back. So, sideboard. We probably want to play 4 Burial Rites, and I don't think we need the 3rd Motoko. Burial Rites, you're mainly going to play against any deck that's like Adam, using their graveyard tons. This is not a bad card in the mirror match either, getting rid of their perfect Lokis and their Motokos that they're trying to get in the late game. Right now, there's just not a lot to deal with graveyards, and we're not playing green-black, so we don't have 3-drop Athena, so this is our option. We are not playing Regalia Break because I don't think we care. I don't think we want to dedicate sideboard slots to that card. We have a lot of control, and yeah, I just feel like Regalia Break's better suited for like a Melgus deck. Let's just leave it at that. So, Loki's Insight. This is a card that you could argue be played in the main, but with all the Melgus going around, I really don't want to like hit them and see a bunch of Resonators in their hand. It's hard to cast this against an aggro deck because it doesn't kill anything, and normally in the beginning of the game you're trying to like deal with what's on the board. When you would bring this in is the mirror match or against Adam, which is a very solid deck right now. It hits Erendite, which is one of their only ways to deal with your Motokos. It hits Raise and Revive, which is how they keep bringing back their Zeus Alice after you keep removing them. And it hits their Motokos if they're playing them, and it hits their Kaguya's, and hits their Dark Alices, and there's just a lot of good targets. So we're going to play 3 of those in the sideboard. Light of Sacred Spirit. Another great card to deal with Zeus Alice. It deals with Nyarlathotep, Zeus Alice. You can't target a Motoko with it, so that's not, don't bring this in for that. But it's just a great card. It's not in the main because there are certain decks that, you just won't have many targets, and there's nothing to do with this card. So, but we want more ways and cheap ways to deal with the Zeus Alice. Holy Novas, if someone's playing all-in machines, you need this card to be able to deal with their Motoko, and then once you deal with that, you pretty much can lock the game out because you have a lot of life gain and tons of removal and a lot of card draw. So, and then a 4th Erendite to round that out against decks that are just playing a lot of Enter triggers. So the sideboard is the newest part of the deck. We just built it last night. I took some suggestions from the Rogues Guild, and this is kind of like the impression I got from what they were saying. Like they were like, yeah, definitely play Loki's Insight. Burial Rites is a great card right now. Light of Sacred Spirits really good for the matchups that you just need that more removal for the cards that are have Eternal. And then like Holy Novas makes sense because we're playing. It's a sword art, and you can cast it for 2 will, essentially. Or you can float 2 will with an Excalibur, play a second Excalibur, float 2 more will, and then, play it for free, essentially, after you got 2 triggers. So, it's a great way to deal with some stuff. So that's about it. Let me know if you guys have any questions or what, but I wasn't sure about how this deck would do. It performed very well, and then it performed even better after we made the changes. Before, I was playing like some Acolytes and one of Athena, one of Zeus Alice, and Zeus Alice was just too hard to get consistent with. Like most of the time, she was just a dead card. So we ended up upping Motoko to 2 in place of the Zeus Alice, playing a second Perfect Loki because I only had 1 before. And the changes just made a lot of sense, and now the deck runs really consistently. It's a ton of fun to play. You draw buckets of cards. You fill the graveyard up fast. You have great targets for Izanami. You can even Izanami and Izanami and give yourself barrier if you need to. So that's something you can do. You know, in response to them targeting you with something. So yeah, it's pretty solid. I think that's about all I've got to say. So yeah, thanks for watching.